How to attract a woman you are already friends with. When I first started meeting new women through cold approaches very consistently, I felt like I had found the Holy Grail. I thought, why do I need a social circle if I can get sex whenever I want from a new woman with a very small time investment? I thought being good at pickup and being a pickup artist was so cool, it would get me all the success with women I ever wanted. But there was one little problem. Everything I had taught was geared toward meeting new women using cold approaches, and that's great. It's an incredible skill to have, and I wouldn't trade it back for any amount of money. But I soon realized that I had been ignoring 90% of the interactions people have on a daily basis. I realized that most men who were showing up to my boot camps just wanted to become more attractive so they could sleep with women they were already friends with or women from work. And not only that, I also realized that when you pick up a social circle, you earn sexual access to the entire group of women. You can practically pick up 10 women for the price of one. But tackling social circle game requires a slight tweak in your mental focus. If you meet a woman in the mall in a city you are rarely in, your goal should be to immediately to get her on an Insta date or get her phone number to follow up 1 to 2 days later. And when you get her in person, you should get her alone and escalate directly to sex. After all, that's the only way you can guarantee you'll make an impression on her big enough for her to want to see you again after you've gone home. This is the general strategy for meeting women in an open system. In an open system, new women are entering the system continuously, and the women who you interact with will be leaving the system after the interaction. You may never see them again. If you are trying to pick up a woman from a closed system, such as your social circle, a party, or your work, the game is slightly different. In a closed system, there is very little influx of new women, and when you interact with a woman, she's going to be there later on and may observe all of your later interactions in that system. In addition, all future women you meet will have seen your interaction with the first woman. Not only that, but showing your interest may hurt your status with the entire group of people. After all, she might have a boyfriend or might be married. Remember a woman's drive to protect her social standing in the group? It's more crucial in this situation because she knows the people she's with. She doesn't have the anonymity of a huge mall or club. So even though a lot of the attraction code still holds true, in a closed system, you want to be calculated, not careful, with the amount of interest you show and precise with how you go about getting phone numbers and dates. Realize that every interaction is not only with the one woman you are talking to, but with every other person in the system. Instead of attracting the one person you are interacting with, direct your focus to attracting the entire social circle as a whole. Try to visualize the entire group combined into one single woman who you are interested in dating. When it comes time to get a phone number, and don't rush it, you'll have other chances to see her again. It should be done for some innocent purpose. You want to study together, you want to work on a project together, you want to have her help you go shopping for your mom, etc. This way, she has plausible deniability if need be. And when you do finally sleep with the first girl in the circle, do not tell a soul. Sure, go ahead and post it in the mastermind forum and send me a success story, but do not let anyone in the circle know. If word gets around, it should be because she's telling everyone how good you are in bed. You need all of the women in the social circle to feel that you protect their secrets like a locked safe. If you can do this effectively, they will see you as risk-free, guilt-free, no strings attached pleasure. And yes, that's a good thing. One more point. Every friendship in your life is a blessing, and those who choose to stay by your side and have your back are your top social priority. You've shared laughs, secrets, struggles, and successes with your friends, and they have stuck with you through all of it. Your friends are more important than some woman you've just met. Never resort to putting your friends down to make yourself look good. This is a false persona, and women recognize it as a behavior of an insecure man. Instead, build your friends up like a true leader. Women will see this as true strength, and you'll be amazed what that will do for attraction. She can't get no satisfaction. A truly dominant man naturally and elegantly satisfies a woman's needs and desires. When a woman sees a man that she feels can satisfy her needs, she is attracted to him. People talk about women's needs all the time. Why do you need me to tell you this stuff? Because we are lied to about what those needs are. We are told that we should impress her with material goods or money, or that we need to communicate more. One of women's needs that is often neglected is her need to be needed. Women need to contribute, to help, to submit, to be enjoyed. They need to be a source of arousal and pleasure for you. You satisfy her by encouraging her to satisfy you. So in order to satisfy her needs, you must be dominant and encourage her to satisfy your needs first. Of course, you will satisfy her other needs as well, but don't disregard her need to contribute. This is a subtle point and is most often overlooked when understanding female psychology. Have you ever lost your voice and couldn't speak? You felt hindered, held down, you couldn't express yourself. Think about a girl you dated, and you did all kinds of favors for her, bought her things, took her out to dinner and paid every time, told her she was perfect and never asked anything of her. She was sitting on the sidelines, getting stagnant. This is what naturals understand, and most guys do not because it's counterintuitive. A woman is not fully satisfied unless she is satisfying you. She only completely enjoys sex when you enjoy sex. She trusts you if you make her be trustworthy. She feels comfortable when you are comfortable. She can only enjoy sex fully if she feels it is a reward. She can only stay attracted to you if she feels you are the more important person. She can only enjoy your masculine gifts, your attention, presence, body, if she earned it first. How to measure a woman's attraction to you? One of my trademark concepts is called compliance. Compliance has many meanings, but when talking about it in terms of pickup, it means getting a woman to contribute to your interaction together or to aid in your lifestyle. Compliance also extends into darker definitions, such as getting a woman to tolerate conditions she doesn't enjoy in exchange for being with you. This is why women who stay with abusive men are sometimes extremely loyal and infatuated with them. They get into the relationship, and by tolerating every unpleasant or even painful behavior, they rationalize that they must really love him. I don't teach men to be abusive to women, but a lot of guys will go out of their way to do all of the work to get together and make it as easy as possible for the woman. If I can persuade a woman to drive out to where I live, I'd rather do that than drive to where she lives. In general, this is a stark contrast to the general idea of be a gentleman and make the date as easy as possible for her. What's funny, though, is that I often will do smaller romantic gestures like pulling out her chair. Meanwhile, she drove 45 minutes to meet me where I wanted to go for dinner. The bigger picture compliance activities always take precedence over the smaller ones. Why does all of this work? If I told you I was willing to sell you a car for $10, what kind of car would you picture? There must be something wrong with it, right? Even if it looked like it was in good shape, you'd be suspicious of what was under the hood. On the other hand, there are countless examples of things that sold more when the price was raised. The point is, we tend to not value things that come to us too easily, and we tend to think of things as valuable if we had to work hard or pay a lot for them. It's this principle that makes compliance so effective. No one wants anything that comes easy, and women will often resent guys who go out of their way to please them. Even if you are the most amazing guy in the world, a woman will never realize it if she didn't have to put work into getting you. Compliance is the only way to accurately measure a woman's true attraction to you. A blueprint of a woman's behavior. To truly understand a woman's mindset as well as her behaviors, you must first understand her physical state. She is smaller, physically weaker, and if she gets pregnant, she carries the burden of a fetus inside her body for 9 months, and also the responsibility of nurturing and protecting the child. She wants to have sex and to have a man in her life. But since she is so vulnerable and is investing and risking so much, she has to make sure she takes that risk of having sex with her best option, a dominant man. But she can only interpret who you are by making inferences based on your character. Your character is conveyed by your physical behavior and your emotional states. A big part of your character is actually determined by your frame. In order to understand what I mean by frame, imagine two men watching a sunset with different colored glasses on. They'll see different colors, though they'll be looking at the same thing. Two people can see the exact same incident in two different ways. If a man gives a homeless man some spare change, some may perceive him as kind-hearted. Others may perceive him as self-serving, only giving because he selfishly wants to be seen a certain way. Frames are very important when we talk about how you perceive women and their behaviors. When you have a strong frame, other people tend to accept it. If you perceive her tests as playful and cute, they'll often turn out harmless. If, on the other hand, you perceive her tests as being scary and intimidating, that's what they'll become. Women test your frame to find out if you're used to women liking you, if you try to make others feel good about themselves and their contributions, or if you feel the need to impress others. They also test to see if you feel guilty about your sexual desire, which would imply that you don't offer much in the bedroom. She needs to know if you have a mind geared for survival. Do you get distracted by the opinions of others? Do you feel threatened by women? Do other men make you nervous? Are you emotionally unstable, causing you to be unduly affected by circumstances? If she were to ask you these things directly, she knows you could lie. So instead of asking you, she tests your focus, your reactions, and gauges your intention and your personal beliefs. She watches you and feels you. She infers things about your character instantly, based on unconscious and rather ingenious intuition. She is wired for this. From the moment she is aware of your existence, she is screening your character. This is why merely knowing techniques doesn't get a person very far. A weak and submissive man who memorizes routines is still a weak and submissive man. If you don't have the attraction code completely internalized to the point where it seems second nature, techniques and routines will never get past her internal screening mechanism, and you will fail her tests. Attraction code clue number 11. Women instinctively test men. The tests are designed to give her information about his status and dominance. The attraction code should not only help a man automatically pass her tests, but also increase attraction each time he does. This is the final clue to the attraction code. I will now start putting the pieces together in the form of concrete breakdowns of female psychology and behavior. This will continue for the rest of the chapter, ultimately arriving at full disclosure of the attraction code in Chapter 4. How women see men. Imagine what it must be like to be a woman. Imagine being smaller and physically weaker than almost half of the population. Imagine risking pregnancy if you have sex. Imagine being judged by men and women by your appearance and having to maintain yourself all the time. Imagine desperately wanting sex and having to balance that with wanting to find a man you can trust. When considering her needs and why they have evolved, remember two aspects of a woman's life. Number one, she is smaller and weaker than men. Her power is in her social alliances. Number two, she gets pregnant from sex and has to carry the baby inside of her for 9 months and is wired to continue nurturing that child. Half of attraction is about perceiving someone as having the potential to satisfy a need. Women are attracted to men who they perceive will help them survive and give them healthy babies. Women first feel attraction on a biological level, as a feeling. Humans are thinking animals. We are who we are because of the evolution of the mind. Her feeling of attraction becomes mentally represented by thoughts. He's cute. This may seem obvious, but it's important that you understand this because her attraction process consists of feeling and thought. She feels attraction first and then later justifies it. Attraction code clue number 10. There is a tendency for men to try to explain their attraction to women. However, we know that women act on feelings and then do the explaining and justification for that action. Actions stemming from the attraction code must cause primarily emotional responses in women. Is it true what they say about people who read this book? Several years ago, I noticed something very unusual. Most of the women who ended up meeting with me after giving me their phone numbers were the ones I'd spent less than 2 minutes talking to in person. When I spent 10 or even 30 minutes with a girl, she would end up being much more likely to flake. At first, it really didn't seem to make sense to me. Shouldn't she want to see someone that she knows more than someone she knows almost nothing about? But upon further reflection, I realized that there was something much deeper going on. Provided I made a strong initial impression, the women who only had short interactions with me would end up filling in the blanks with the character traits of her ideal man. Whenever we receive an inadequate amount of information, our mind will fill it in based not only on our past experiences, but also on hopeful, wishful thinking. In other words, if your first impression was very positive but short, she would fill in the rest of her concept of you with more positive character traits. Keep in mind this is entirely subconscious and automatic. It's the same process that we use when we stereotype someone who looks or talks a certain way. Learning how to take advantage of this process will be extremely valuable to you as a pickup artist. When you leave out information about yourself or deliberately suggest that there's missing information, you are generating intrigue. You are using the power of her imagination to do the seduction for you. As a rule, intrigue and the proper use of intrigue is more powerful than anything that you could possibly say about yourself. Why? Because no matter what you say about yourself or demonstrate to her, she can always imagine something better. And as she takes the time to think about you in an attempt to figure you out, she's actually mentally committing to you and further investing in you. Attraction is not what you do to a woman. It is what you cause her mind to do when you're with her and in your absence. How fast should you escalate to sex? There seems to be a debate as to how fast a guy should escalate to sex. To me, it's very simple. Your best chance to take the relationship where you want it to go is to have sex with her as quickly as possible. Here's why. Most attractive women have a number of guys at any one time to choose from. The more time you put between your interactions, the more likely she is to sleep with another guy. Perhaps because she's wired this way, or perhaps because of social pressure, when a girl's dating several guys and she has sex with one of them, she chooses to be with him. Also, because of backwards rationalization, if she knows you for a while and doesn't have sex with you, she's likely to think, I haven't had sex with him, I must not be that attracted to him. She'll be more likely to flake and will finally categorize you as just a friend. On the other hand, if she has sex with you within hours of meeting you, she's likely to rationalize that she must really like you and be attracted to you. The benefits are clear. If you're looking for more power, greater attraction, and generally more favorable conditions in your relationship, it is to your advantage to sleep with a woman as fast as possible. Early frustrations I faced as a pickup artist in training. When I first started approaching women, I realized that if I was too forward or showed too much interest, it was very common for a woman to reject me. It seemed like saying, I have a boyfriend, was every woman's automatic response when any guy showed any interest whatsoever. Well, I wasn't dumb. I saw those aloof guys getting women, so I decided that I would pretend I wasn't interested at all. I swung completely the other way and started to fake disinterest. After all, if I didn't show interest, I couldn't get rejected, right? Wrong. It was even worse than when I was straightforward about my intention. The girl would either sense that I was pretending and distrust me, or think that she had no chance at all and lose interest. So I started on my quest for techniques. read some books, went online, memorized a few lines, and started using them in my interactions, sometimes I would get great reactions, but other times I would fail miserably, even though I was saying the same things that sometimes worked. Got me thinking. And finally, I realized something profound. I began to see a pattern emerge. If I felt really good, I would do well no matter what I said, but if I felt so-so, I would get rejected. Although I was still pretty bad at the time, it was this realization that ultimately inspired me to spawn an entire movement of natural game pickup artists. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. My first encounter with the supernatural. About 10 years ago, I was out in a club and saw a man who was probably the best guy with women I've ever met. His name was Tony, and he could practically have any woman he wanted. To his credit, Tony was not very good looking at all. He wasn't a tall guy. He was actually a bit shorter than I am. But this guy could pull, let me tell you. He can go into any club in New York City, walk up to the hottest women, sometimes leave with 2 or 3 of them. If anyone could tell me the secret to success with women, it was him. Got together all of my strength and confidence and approached this guy hoping he might share his secrets. I ended up sitting at the bar with him and I asked him what made him so good with women. He immediately turned the conversation around and asked me about what I did to attract women. Started explaining what I did back then. Don't remember exactly what I told him, but I remember it was pretty structured. His reaction was priceless. He told me, if you have to think about all of that, you'll never be successful with women. Why make things hard? Pickup is easy. Now, being an analytical guy, I couldn't accept his explanation. It wasn't complicated enough. At the time, it made no sense to me. And although I didn't understand it at the time, now it makes perfect sense. Chapter 2. Origins of the Attraction Code. Is your mental software obsolete? The other day I was having a conversation with a guy about women and dating. I was telling him that women like it when a man guides them by putting his hand on their lower back, like when you're slow dancing or crossing the road. It makes them feel valued and safe. He agreed, but thought that this was ultimately rather silly. He said that women don't need to be protected by men. There are laws and police officers for that. He was only seeing the surface. I explained that our modern society has existed for just a sliver of time compared to our long human history. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in treacherous environments full of predators, competition, and scarce resources, and around the world many still do today. So what does this have to do with you or me, in our society, in the 21st century? A lot of times when I try to explain the rules of attraction, guys don't understand that I'm talking about rules that developed over time, in our ancestors, which reside in our genetic memory. For example, I'll say, you have to take the lead and make decisions about where to go and what to do. If she doesn't want to go along with it, she'll tell you, but she doesn't want you to put the pressure of making the decision on her. The guy will say, that's stupid. You should ask her what she wants to show that you care about her. Although what he's saying rationally makes sense, her lack of confidence in making decisions is something that has evolved over literally millions of years. Today, women are almost equal to men in legal terms. True, inequalities exist, but women have just as much chance to provide for themselves as men do. Women don't need men to protect them or provide for them, or even get them pregnant. And yet, the strong desire to seek out and mate with men still exists. The evolution process moves very slowly. As a species, our instincts have not caught up to a rapidly changing society. This is because evolution happens slowly, over a span of generations. It takes about 1,000 generations for a significant, observable trait to manifest. The longer a species exists within an environment niche, the deeper and more lasting their traits and instinctual needs. Society evolves by the minute. We are so smart that we have created a foreign environment that changes faster than we do. My father still calls the fridge the icebox and could never figure out how to program a VCR, which at the time of this book is an artifact itself. We are operating on old software, and the most important thing to understand when your goal is to attract women, that they are also operating on old software. Even though it's unnecessary, women want a man who is strong and can survive. But you don't need to be strong or intelligent to survive in our society. It's very easy for most people to get through school, get a job, and get enough to eat every day without being the most dominant member of the group. And unless there's something seriously wrong with you, you have enough survival value to attract any woman you want. So, it's no longer about demonstrating survival. It has become a game of exhibiting cues that convey relative dominance. And these cues aren't technical tricks for you to memorize. The cues are governed by higher level processes that we will soon investigate and begin to consciously control. Keep in mind, there has to be a balance. We cannot just simply play the old game. Some new rules also apply, and we must take that into consideration. For example, buying a drink for a woman as a way of getting permission to talk to her is a weak move because it conveys to her that you are not valuable enough on your own and you need the added value of a strawberry daiquiri to be worth her while. If you are already having fun together, it can be good to get a round of shots for the two of you. You are buying her a drink, a relatively modern convention, but you are doing it in a way that conveys survivability, providing for her, and so valuing her according to ancient rules. You are conveying a dominant character. She is looking at your character instead of your cool haircut or your fancy watch. By modern society's rules, politeness, money, and cool clothes would be most important in conveying dominance and thus attracting women. I assure you, they are not. Think of how many times you have wondered how some loser with a crappy job and no money could have gotten a beautiful woman like her. Remember, a man's value is in his character. And your character is not judged according to modern society's survival requirements. If you have a job and a nice car and health insurance, then you are a survivor. By today's standards, you're a good investment. Unfortunately, she's not wired to screen for a nice car and health insurance. Even a woman who asks you what kind of car you drive is really screening you to see how you answer the question. In other words, she's testing something else and is probably a characteristic that has evolved over millions of years. When you understand the attraction code, you won't even have to think about how to pass her test. It will already be in you. Attraction code clue number 5. Today's society is a technological marvel that has out-evolved our own biological instincts. We cannot trust modern science or even the latest psychology to point us in the right direction. We must look elsewhere and ultimately find a solution which not only gives us the dominance necessary for attraction, but also considers society's new rules. Tonight on the Discovery Channel. In mammals, the male impregnates the female, who then carries the offspring inside of her. After birth, the child needs to be fed, protected, and taught to be self-sufficient. This takes a lot of physical resources. The best chance of survival for a pregnant mother and her baby is for the male who impregnates her to be fit, to have good genes. This is important so that not only will her baby have the best genes, but also so that the male will protect and care for her and the baby. This is not always the case, but is true in primates and especially modern humans and our ancestors. It's a gene game. Just as a man is driven to pass on his genes, a woman wants to pass on her genes as well. She is attracted to a male who is sexually virile, strong, a survivor who can make a lot more survivors in their offspring because they carry his genes. Here's where it gets interesting. Have you ever wondered why women are so much pickier when it comes to sex? When men will sometimes try to have sex with anything that moves? Here's why. When the female has sex, she takes more of a risk to her survival than the male who impregnates her. In order to make a baby, a man must simply thrust until he has an orgasm. Tough job, right? I once saw a comedian who mentioned that he was going to be father in 4 months. When the audience applauded this announcement, he looked surprised and said, "It's no big deal, I just fucked my wife." A woman endures much more. Animals are wired to be chemically rewarded for doing their evolutionary duty. In fact, because she is taking a bigger risk, she experiences a greater chemical reward. A woman's experience of sex and orgasm is different from a man's. There's a longer and more pronounced endorphin and dopamine release. At the same time, however, she has more to lose. This dynamic allowed the evolution of sexually driven women who screen their men relentlessly. It's a beautiful thing and one of the main reasons why humans are at the top of the food chain. Attraction code clue number 6. Women are biologically different than men. As a result, a woman could get pregnant and need to expend an enormous amount of physical and emotional resources. The attraction code must take this difference into consideration. The end result of internalizing the attraction code. Full realization of the attraction code means that your intention is fully expressed in all situations despite the external frictions on your state. And this might seem intimidating, especially if you had trouble in the past. Although you are close to finishing this book, the most important determinant of success is the action you take after you read it to the end. My hope is that you will take this new understanding of the attraction code and begin to integrate it into your everyday life. The biggest benefit of this discipline is that you can always be practicing the attraction code, even when you're not out picking up. Are you going to go back to your old ways of doing things? Or are you going to make a decision to take deliberate action and begin to integrate everything you've learned over the weeks ahead? I'm not going to lie to you. Although the end result of the attraction code is that picking up women is easy, it will take some discipline to get there. You're going to want to reread this book again and again. I designed it to be understood on multiple levels. Read it again, take notes this time, or maybe even try to teach the concepts to a friend. Teaching someone else improves your own understanding of the material, plus you'll have a partner on the path with you. After you've approached and escalated with a few women, come back and read it a few more times. This time you will see a few more things that you may have missed or understand things on a more abstract level. If you need any help at all, don't hesitate to contact my team. We love working with people and will do our best to help you reach your goals, however far out of reach they might seem right now. The road to mastery is infinitely long. Whatever level of success you are looking for is available to you, no matter how ambitious it is. My very first thoughts about attraction. Back when I was in grade school, attraction seemed to be completely based on good looks. If a girl thought a boy was cute, she would write him a love note and they would become boyfriend and girlfriend. Went on like this for a few years until about high school when something shifted. Started seeing things that didn't quite make sense. I saw guys who were complete pricks getting women left and right. I saw guys who were goof-offs who got bad grades, and even ugly guys getting the girls that I so desperately wanted. It was no longer about looks. Sure, if a guy was extremely good-looking, he would attract some female attention, and some women would even outright tell him that they were interested. Hell, it happened to me a few times. The problem was, a woman falling into my lap only happened about 1 to 2 times every year. I thought long and hard about why this was, and the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. Was it their sculpted, muscular bodies? Nope. Saw plenty of guys with huge muscles without girlfriends. Was it their intelligence? Nope. I knew a couple of really smart guys who were also good looking who couldn't get a date to save their life. I looked everywhere but couldn't find the answer. Every time I thought I was onto something, I would find 5 examples proving it was wrong. What was a guy to do if he liked a girl and wanted to attract her? There's always the dating lottery. So, as a man, I was faced with a problem. I realized that if I wanted to have more than 1 to 2 opportunities to go on a date each year, then I had to become really good looking overnight or become a rock star. Actually, there was one other option. I realized I could get proactive about the whole thing and start approaching women. I'm sure you could imagine how scared I was to start approaching women for the very first time. I still had trouble speaking up to answer a question in class, never mind approaching a girl I'd never met before and trying to get a date with her. Anyway, I faced my fear and did some approaches. And very quickly, I realized that this would be harder than I first thought. The 5 potential dangers of fast escalation and how to deal with them. Now that I have shown you why it's important to escalate as fast as possible, I think it's only fair we discuss the reasons why most men don't. When I talk about fast escalations, I'm talking about moving from hello to sex in time periods from about 10 minutes to 4 hours. Most of my encounters take place between 2 to 4 hours, but I've also had a good number of escalations happen at the half-hour mark and a few around 10 to 15 minutes. If this seems a bit out of your current reality, I understand. I certainly remember the first few times it happened to me before I started doing it consistently. To be honest, I kind of freaked out a little bit. I had a slight issue with women and started to think that they're all sluts or that they could be manipulated by any guy if he pushed the right buttons to have sex very quickly. Instead of taking issue with it, I just decided that if it was in fact true, I sure as hell would rather be the type of guy that was sleeping with them quickly than the boyfriend at the receiving end whose girlfriend is getting seduced by some skilled pickup artist. Maybe it's not your thing. Perhaps you really want to get to know a girl before getting intimate with her. And that's just fine. But either way, the education is extremely valuable. It provides an even deeper understanding of the female psyche. Yes, there are challenges to this, but if you're prepared for the challenges and know how to deal with each one, you'll actually find it easier than slow seduction. In fact, you just may find it impossible to go back to playing the slow game. The 5 possible challenges to fast escalation. Number 1, lack of escalation knowledge and technique. The first challenge most guys have when trying to escalate quickly is that they have no concept of the process involved and the different skills that are required for it. In my mind, there are 3 distinct skills that need to be mastered in order to pull off this type of thing. The first is a thorough understanding of the DiCarlo escalation ladder. You need to know how to touch a woman in ways that make her feel comfortable and guarantee she won't reject you. The DiCarlo escalation ladder is a step-by-step process that takes you smoothly from eye contact and conversation to sex without any large leaps for a woman to object to. At the same time, it contains no unnecessary steps that may slow you down. The second skill is a thorough understanding of windows of opportunity. You need to know what these windows look like and what the appropriate action is for each one. Remember, windows are neutral. They are open to interpretation, but you should never, ever try to escalate after she shows certain disinterest. The DiCarlo escalation ladder and windows of opportunity go hand in hand in that you should always time your overt escalations immediately after you perceive an open window. Last but not least, you need to understand sexual tension. Sexual tension creates the pull which fuels the momentum you're going to need to make a fast escalation happen. Number 2, and the second challenge for fast escalation, is a greater chance of rejection from escalating before she's ready. Now, although this is different from the first challenge, it is solved the exact same way. Rejection does not usually happen because of lack of attraction. It actually comes from an improper understanding of escalation. For example, a woman could be very attracted, but if you make a critical error such as leaning in awkwardly for a kiss from 3 feet away, she's going to reject you. Conversely, you will have many women who are not initially attracted to you go along with your escalations if you trigger receptivity with your actions. It's an automatic reflex that happens when you pass a test or frame the escalation as a reward for her compliance. You can get so good with this stuff that rejection will never even cross your mind. You will live in a reality where no matter what you do will work and women will respond favorably to whatever escalations you attempt. Number 3, challenge to fast escalation. Not knowing how to answer, do you do this with every girl? Instead of getting into a moral discussion, I'm just going to tell you exactly what a woman wants to hear and let you adapt it to your situation. No, in fact, I dated my last girlfriend for almost a month before having sex with her. I just don't know what it is. I can't control myself around you. And although I can't explain it, and yes, I know it's fast, I just believe in going with the flow of things. Okay. Number 4 challenge to fast escalation. Falling into the one-night stand category. This is perhaps the biggest challenge. Now, maybe you want a one-night stand. Perhaps you want to have sex with a bunch of women only one time and never see them again. If you do, that's fine and you can ignore this section. But for me, if a woman is worth sleeping with once, she's worth sleeping with a few times and exploring the possibility of including her in my life. There are 2 factors at play here. The first factor is the quality of sex. A woman is much more likely to want to see you again if you're good in bed. I'm not going to go into much detail here because it's a subject covered at length in many other books, but if you're not good, just know that it could be a possible reason you're not getting callbacks from women you've slept with. The second factor is a delicate balance of caring for her without coming across as needy. The way I look at it is that immediately after sex, I will provide her with as much affection as she craves and no more. Typically, I will hold a woman very close to me in a protective manner after sex. I will talk to her and show her that I still relate to her and enjoy her as much as I did before we had sex. If she wants to stay over, if she wants you to hold her, do it. Some women may feel the need to leave immediately after sex. Maybe they're not comfortable or they don't know how to act. Maybe they just don't sleep well with someone else there and they really do have an early morning the next day. This is okay. Let them go. When a woman wants to leave, be very understanding and do not try to get her to change her mind. Never try to resist, argue, try to get her to stay over, or try to make more plans with her. Just be 110% cool with it. Drop her off at home or walk her to her car in a caring and protective manner. These guidelines will set up the encounter in her mind so she is not sure what you want, but is secretly hoping you call. Number 5, and the last challenge to fast escalation, is not knowing how to follow up correctly. If you want to see a woman again after sleeping with her very quickly, I suggest calling her back the next evening. Some women have the belief that if he doesn't call the next day, it was a one-night stand. Now, it's not always necessary, and sometimes it won't be possible for you to call the next day, so just call a day or 2 later and it'll be cool. Some guys wonder if calling the next day means you're showing too much interest. Here's how I look at it. Once you have had sex with a woman, you have won the game. You have all the power. Before you have had sex with her, she had the power to flake on you. But now, you have the power to flake on her. So the nature of the call is not to get something else from her, but only to make her feel good about the decision she made. In other words, you're doing it as a gesture of kindness. Most of the time on a follow-up call, I'll just see how she's doing and continue connecting with her just like on our first date. This phone call can last anywhere from 10 minutes up to 3 hours. And if you do end up spending 3 hours on the phone with her, consider her yours. Here's another interesting fact. Sometimes when you call the next day, she won't answer and won't even call you back. Don't be discouraged. If she doesn't call you back in 2 days, try again. The quick and dirty guide to manufacturing confidence. I have some news for you. Maybe shocking to you, or perhaps it's obvious. Confidence doesn't really exist. Well, not as most people understand it anyway. It's nothing but a feeling that you have when you have the right focus and the perceptions that others will have of you when they see you behaving with that focus. That's why I hardly ever talk about confidence or tell guys to be confident. Ever. In fact, I believe that telling a man just be confident is absurd. Confidence itself is an illusion. Telling someone to be confident presupposes that they are not confident, and the words alone have a weakening effect on their state. In addition, telling someone to be confident is interpreted as instantly change your beliefs, which is nearly impossible. Our beliefs change over time as a result of our actions and social feedback. New beliefs aren't even that crucial in the short term. You don't have to have perfect beliefs to make a few changes in your focus or behavior and start getting better feedback from women. I'd like to propose a new definition of confidence. I'd like you to stop thinking of confidence as being certain of success. Rather, think of it as the action of giving whatever you are doing the entirety of your effort. When we see what we believe as confidence, we aren't actually seeing a person's thoughts of the future of success. We are seeing the outer results of their focus. Think about a recent post-game interview with a star athlete. When he or she was asked, "Did you know you would make that shot?" What were your thoughts going into the game? Were you worried? Did you get upset after you made that mistake? How confident were you going into this crucial game? What does every single athlete say? They say something like, "I wasn't really thinking about the other team or how many points I got. I just knew that if I worked hard and did what I had to do, we'd come out with the win. I wasn't concerned with the final result at that point. Just focus on my game, and in the back of my mind, hope for the best." I just focused on my game. That is real confidence. Throwing my routine cheat sheet out the window. In my entire time training to become a pickup artist and later to become a trainer of pickup artists, I never forgot what Tony said to me that night. When I dabbled with memorizing really long routines, I saw more evidence of what he was talking about. Early on, I would memorize all kinds of stuff before I went out to meet women. And it was interesting. Maybe it was just me, but I noticed that the less my mind was filled with technical structures and details, the more attention I had available to interact socially. And not only that, the less prepared I was, the more spontaneous I would become. I was really starting to understand where Tony was coming from. I finally understood what was meant by natural game, wrote extensively about it, introducing it to the online community of pickup artists. But at the time, I was still light years away from discovering the attraction code. If you really want this, there is one thing you must do. Perhaps you know exactly what you're looking for. Or maybe you just have a vague idea that something isn't right and you're hoping for a solution. At the very least, since you're listening to this book, I'm willing to bet that you're ready for a change. Well, I don't profess to have all the answers, but one thing is for certain. I have massive success with women. I don't even have enough time in the day for all the opportunities that seem to fall into my lap. If most men saw the caliber of women I was turning down on a daily basis, their jaws would drop straight to the floor in sheer disbelief. I have reverse engineered the entire process to the point where I can take guys who are nearly hopeless and systematically train them to move through the world like effortless naturals. As you know, I couldn't always do this. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've made every mistake a guy can make with women. So, what did I do to turn it around? Besides seeking out the very best naturals in the world, I looked everywhere I could for answers. I read all the books on how to be successful with women, went out to bars, clubs, and malls relentlessly and kept detailed journals of my progress. But most importantly, I took action. Do not ever let a book, article, or merely watching others replace your own responsibility to take action. That is the only way you will grow in this area of your life. Don't get me wrong, I put a lot of my own insight and realizations into this book, and its ultimate purpose is to give you a shortcut on your path to mastering this area of your life and literally shave years off of your learning curve. But you still have to take deliberate action. So, how do you know what's the best course of action? Society, media, your friends, parents, even women all give conflicting advice, which can be hard to sort through. Though well-intentioned, much of this advice may not work or may not be right for your personality type. Even the online community is full of contradicting theories that create more confusion than clarity. If you simply knew where to go, what to focus on, and what to do to meet and attract women, I'd be willing to bet that you would be totally willing to put your whole being on that path. The attraction code will give you the guidance and direction you need and provide you with a very clear, concise, principled foundation on which to build your success. I've seen it work for other men in our boot camps, and I'm confident that it'll work for you. The origin of social behavior. Some 3 million years ago, certain primate species came out of the trees and began to walk on two legs. Our ancestors faced new kinds of predators and could no longer stay up in the trees to avoid being eaten. They had to adapt to new conditions. They had to walk around and forage for food. There was strength in numbers. By sticking together, a troop of bipedal apes could fend off a lion that would easily mangle any one of them. Much more recently, around 100,000 years ago, the climate changed drastically, becoming very cold and dry. There was an extreme shortage of water and livable climate. Anthropologists call this an environmental bottleneck. It's the kind of situation that speeds up the evolutionary process because it demands that you adapt or die. Some species became extinct in this situation. Other species adapt and become stronger. That's what happened to early humanoids. Most became extinct, but one small strain of Homo sapiens survived and evolved. The most important change that our ancestors made was the development of the mind. This mind was capable of symbolic thought, empathy, and possessed a powerful memory. The amazing effects of megamemory. As the climate changed, humans had to find new food sources. In a colder climate, our age-old sources of food, bugs and berries, were no longer available, and we had to hunt bigger sources of protein. Shelter and clothing were a necessity in order to survive the harsh elements. Locations conducive to survival, warmth, water, and food, were hard to find. We had to share resources. We had to learn to get along with each other, form alliances, and share information. Our minds gave us the ability to remember, form alliances, maintain social status, and strategize day-to-day survival. The mind became the most powerful survival asset. Brute force was no longer all important. The new alpha male was smart, social, athletic, and skilled in hunting and gathering food. Because we were now a social species, the new alpha male was a man who was valuable to others. He was no longer a bully, but a leader in the group. A profound and revealing fact must also be mentioned. It has been proven through anthropological forensics that humans did not start speaking verbal language until about 50,000 years ago. Remember that tribal pre-humans emerged 2 million years ago. That means that for 1.95 million years, our ancestors functioned in tribes without speaking in words. Vocal cords didn't appear until 200,000 years ago, and only then we communicated with grunts and moans. As a species, talking with words is relatively new. For most of our history, we communicated by entirely different means. The 50,000 years since the emergence of language is a sliver of time compared to the millions of years we evolved to communicate non-verbally. Again, this is not enough time to phase out what took so long to hardwire into our nature. Humans communicate verbally, but more so non-verbally through body language, emotions observed physically, eye contact, and vocal inflection. Attraction code clue number 7. Humans have been mating long before language has even existed. So we know that body language and other physical cues are much more significant than language. However, an attractive man is not constantly thinking about these things. They just happen automatically. He must be thinking about something else. The end of natural game? When I first coined the phrase natural game several years ago, I never knew it would catch on the way it did. Seems everywhere I turn these days I see some new wannabe guru calling his own brand of generic be yourself, heard it 100 times speak natural game. From watching the trends of commercial brands of pickup, I noticed that things were continually becoming less patterned, less scripted, and ultimately less robotic. Don't get me wrong, I'm probably the world's biggest advocate of using a very natural, personal style that is not reliant on canned lines and routines. So by definition, I can't complain about this kind of trend. Unfortunately, however, I feel that the original intention of natural game has been lost. The original message has been diluted, disfigured, and deformed, and many people are now interpreting natural game as, it's as easy as being yourself. This couldn't be further from the truth. Unless you were naturally brought into the world as an extremely skilled pickup artist, it is a discipline, and one that many men dedicate months or even years to mastering. When people fly in from all over the world to participate in a declassified drills boot camp, they are coming for something very profound, yet at the same time, something that is extraordinarily simple. I believe that most men, whether they are just starting out or have been in the game a few years already, are searching for one simple thing: truth. Truth in what causes attraction, truth in the surprising simplicity of what behaviors get results, and of course, the ultimate truth about whom they really are as a person once all the layers of false programming have been cleared away. I try to warn people, if you come to this kind of boot camp, be prepared to look directly at who you are as if you were looking into a mirror for the very first time in your life. Sometimes people aren't ready for that. In fact, many guys that sign up aren't sure they're ready for it. But they do know one thing. They know that the reason they're not getting results is that they are being bombarded on all sides by the media, by women they talk to, and conflicting theories and advice from a whole spectrum of men claiming to have all the answers. And once they realize that their confusion is not going away and is in fact increasing, they start doing a little bit of research. My clients are smart people. I don't attract idiots. After every workshop, when I ask them why they choose my program over the endless sea of competition, they almost always tell me, your material has a ring of truth to it. They never tell me it's because of hype or clever marketing. And maybe it's because I've dedicated all of my focus over the last few years to really refining my training program. And maybe I should visit my nearest local college and sign up for some marketing courses. But whatever the reason is, it's not a big deal to me. When it comes to business, I only care about one thing, and that is a measurable, reportable increase in the quality of life for my clients. In other words, I'm not attached to any particular style. There's something that transcends style, and that is the ability to create the exact lifestyle you want, regardless of how you create it. Does this era mark the end of natural game? Probably not. There is mass appeal in the idea that guys can pick up women using their natural personality. And because the words natural game are extremely vague, it's very easy for almost anybody to claim they teach it. My prediction is that things will move even further in this direction as genuine pickup training becomes increasingly harder to find as this trend becomes more and more mainstream.